Good morning, everyone. And thank you for, good morning. And thank you for joining the Epsilon Pi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated virtual historically Black colleges and universities, AKA HBCUs event. I am Carlene Taylor, one of the co-chairs of the HBCU for Life Committee and a proud graduate of the illustrious Tuskegee University. We have a very informative program planned for you today. Not only will we be providing information about the greatness of HBCUs, but we have experts with us today that will discuss financing in HBCU. We have 4 panelists. They will be speaking from different perspectives. We have an HBCU higher education professional. We have an HBCU student. We have a parent, and we have an overall financial aid and scholarship expert. You will hear more about their background when we introduce the panel. We also want to encourage you throughout the event to type questions in the chat, because there will be a question and answers portion of the program after the panel discussion, where you'll be able to get your questions answered. There will be someone watching the chat throughout the program. They will be picking up your questions. And when we get to that portion of the program, you will hear that your questions will be asked to the panelists. So again, we encourage you to type your questions in throughout the program. We hope that you find this program helpful. We hope that it will help you as you embark on your college preparation process, as you journey towards higher education. We are glad that you're with us today. We certainly do not take it lightly that you're taking 2 hours out of your Saturday morning to be with us. Again, thank you for joining the program, and we hope that you find it valuable and informative. Next, I would like to introduce the president of our chapter, Mrs. Stephanie Cooper Smiley, to bring greetings. Ms. Cooper Smiley.
Thank you very, very much. And good morning to you all. On behalf of the Epsilon Pi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, let me thank you for joining our program today. Your attendance on this Zoom confirms the fact that you know that everything worth anything invariably comes with a cost. An education at one of our illustrious historically Black colleges and universities is definitely worth the cost. We believe that education is a right, not simply a privilege for a lucky few. And so our commitment to share information about financing and HBCU education is real. Today, you will hear from some experts, some folks that have successfully financed an HBCU education, and others that will share some very useful information that honestly, you will be able to use time and time again, even to finance education somewhere else. But today, let's focus on HBCUs and capture this important information. Please, please take notes, and please, please, please ask questions. Thank you again for joining us, and welcome. Sister Carlene, it's back to you.
Thank you for hosting this wonderful event.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sister Stephanie. Thank you for that wonderful introduction or greetings. Now we would like to play a video for you about just giving you some HBCU facts. Can we play the video, please? And then after the video, you will hear from Ms. Kelly Muse Kirkland, who is also the co-chair of the HBCU for Life Committee. Thank you.
I don't think that we can show the video right now.
That is correct. Having some technical difficulties.
Okay.
So if it comes a time when we can play it later, just let us know and we'll play it at a later time. But greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this amazing event. to learn about funding and HBCU education. We are all aware that HBCUs are on the rise in terms of attendance and applications, but how do we fund the HBCU education? We all want to send our students to these wonderful and illustrious historical colleges, but sometimes we just don't know, or we don't have the money to do so. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. The moment that they earn their bachelor's degree, a Black college graduate owes $7,400 more on average than their white peers. That's $23,400 versus $16,000, including non-borrowers in the averages. But over the next few years, the Black and white debt gap more than triples to a whopping $25,000. Differences in interest, accrual, and graduate school borrowing lead Black graduates holding $53,000 in student loan debt 4 years after graduation, which is almost twice as much as their white counterparts. And ladies and gentlemen, today we're here to learn how else can we fund our educations. So that's why we're here today. And we want to close the gap. We want to educate you and let you know how you can go about funding, sending your children to school. And we're going to get started. Our moderator today is Tatiana, and she is a proud alumna of Bennett College, the oldest all-women's HBCU. She is currently an educator. She attributes most of her success to her foundation set by Bennett College. She understands the importance of funding an HBCU education as she herself had to navigate managing an HBCU education through financial aid, obtaining scholarships and grants herself in order for her to obtain her own dreams and make her own dreams a reality. And ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you Ms. Tatiana Walker.
Thank you so much, Sister Kelly. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm so excited that you guys are here and that you guys are taking this step and educating yourselves on how to finance an HBCU education, because we all know that all schools are not created equal and the HBCUs are the best. So I'm excited because we have 4 dynamic panelists this morning. So we'll be hearing from 4 totally different perspectives, one from a student, one from a parent, a higher ed professional, and then a financial aid and scholarship expert. So we have 4 different perspectives. So we're going to leave with a lot of knowledge. So before we start the questioning, I would like to introduce who our panelists are, starting with our student panelist, Erin Thompson. Erin Thompson is a 2021 North Carolina A&T State University magna cum laude graduate. She is currently a first-year law student at the Thurgood Marshall School of Law, where she attends on an academic scholarship. Erin is a member of the Academic Honor Society and the National Black Law Student Association. We are so excited to have Erin. Let's give a silent applause for Erin. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Our next panelist is our parents panelist, Santasha Troutman. Santasha Troutman is currently employed as a specialist on the academic response team with the New York City Department of Education, where she supports principals and their communities in Brooklyn South. Santasha is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She holds an undergraduate degree from Cheyney University, the first Black HBCU, where she majored in marketing with a minor in accounting. She also holds a master's degree from LIU Brooklyn in early childhood and elementary education, a master's degree from Mercy College in educational technology, and an SAS certificate and license from Baruch College. Santasha is a proud mother of 3, a recent college graduate from SUNY Fredonia, a sophomore at University of New Haven, and a freshman at Benjamin Cardozo High School. Thank you, Santasha, for being here. Our next panelist is our higher educational professional, Casey Lowe. Casey Lowe is an accomplished sales, marketing, business management professional. She has held extensive managerial positions in America's premier and Fortune 500 companies, including General Electric, Black & Decker, Brown & Williamson. She currently serves as an education director College of Engineering at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. As a current higher education professional, Ms. Lowe understands the importance of education and the challenges specific to diverse student populations. Her work has impacted the student experience and student success directly. An adept fundraising professional, Ms. Lowe has raised millions of dollars in scholarship and institutional support. More importantly, her work serves to support student matriculation and ensure an effective path to graduation. Ms. Lowe is a graduate of the Earl G. Graves School of Business at Morgan State University and the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University School of Business and Industry, where she earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration and a Master of Business Administration. Thank you, Casey Lowe. We're so excited to have you. Last but certainly not least, we have our final panelist, who is the financial aid and scholarship expert, Vanessa L. Sparks. Vanessa L. Sparks' work focuses on parent and student advocacy and providing families information and access on post-secondary financial aid process. Ms. Sparks has assisted families with the college admission and financial aid process for 20 years. Her training in financial aid and mentorship includes the U.S. Department of Education, College Access Consortium of New York, Davidson College, and Goddard Riverton Options College Access Program. Ms. Sparks has served as the Queensborough President Appointee to Community Education Council 28 and served as its first Vice President, past Treasurer for the NAACP Jamaica Queens Branch, NAACP Metropolitan Education Community and Education Chairperson, National Action Network Queens Chapter. Currently, Ms. Sparks is a member of the Community Board 12 Education Committee and a founding member of the Hbcu Parent Association in Queens, New York. Ms. Sparks has attended CUNY Queens College, CUNY School of Professional Studies, and SUNY Empire State College. She was employed by the New York State Department of Health Child and Adult Food Program as a health program administrator and employee assistance program coordinator for the New York State Department of Health Metropolitan Region. Now retired after 32 years working in the state of New York, Vanessa Sparks resides in Jamaica, Queens, and is a mother, mother-in-law, and proud grandmother of 2 granddaughters. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for being here. So as I've already stated, and as you can see from their bios, we have some dynamic women here. And so let's jump right into the questioning so that we can hear all that they have to say. And I'm gonna just get right to it. It is often said that HBCUs do not give out money. Is that true? And any one of you can answer that question.
So I'll jump in. That is a stereotype that is not true. As we all know, there are a lot of stereotypes that come with HBCUs that just simply we know from experience that are not true. And HBCUs are actually very generous with scholarships and grants and the money that they provide for their students. There are a lot of resources that are provided that a lot of people just simply don't know about. And so that's how that stigma has came about, just from misinformation and non-information. And so there are a lot of, like, as I said, resources that are available to students and prospective students from HBCUs because they want to make sure that they take care of their students. And as a graduate from an HBCU and a student, again, as an HBCU, I can attest to the fact that they do take care of their students well.
Yes, I want to jump in as well. That is an absolute fallacy. As Ms. Thompson said, one of the challenges is that people just don't know. And when people don't know, they don't ask. HBCUs, although most HBCUs do not have the endowment monies that many of the PWIs have, what they do have, they are really willing and readily available to share with students and prospective students. So the answer to that is a definite no. I am also the mother of an HBCU alum, Clark Atlanta University, go Panthers. So I can tell you from when I was a parent, how generous Atlanta was, and not only generosity with their money, even when you did hit roadblocks, if you may have hit a financial roadblock, they were far more willing to assist the student find monies internally or externally.
Thank you both for that response. And so the one thing that's resonating with me is that both of you said people just don't know. And so now my follow-up question to that is, then where do we look, right? So if a student is interested in funding and they want to know what scholarships are out there, where can be a starting point for them to look into this?
Okay, I'll take that. I didn't know if that was financial aid professional. So again, I'm Casey Lowe and I'm representing today Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, but I also am a parent. I am an educator in ways, I think for the HBCU experience, I'm a higher ed professional. I'm a student 2 or 3 times. My story is I started at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, finished at Morgan, and I rounded it back out and I got an MBA in 2017. So I have experienced the process and how it's changed. So where do you find money? At most institutions, in order for you, if it's institutional, in order for you to receive scholarships, everybody, parents, be sure to fill out a FAFSA. Mm-hmm. That is like you can get a scholarship, but in order for it to be awarded, you have to have a FAFSA on file. Mm-hmm. Know that. So there's institutional support. There usually are websites. So any school that you're interested in, go to their website, look on the site, type in scholarships, and usually they have a scholarship portal. Mm-hmm. And I, with technology, that will be my first point. Financial aid. Connect with someone in your financial aid office in the school that you're interested in and ask the questions beyond financial aid. Find out the things about the school. If there is a person outside of, the financial aid office that you can connect with. It's kind of like shaking trees. You kind of have to be flexible, but your number one step is your FAFSA. Your number 2 is to check the school portals, because all schools do have institutional support and scholarships that are usually, very few are need-based. Most are GPA. Most are so students and parents, that number one thing is going to be that GPA and testing. And that's as a parent. That's it. My daughter is a graduate of Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. So she's a baby rattler, actually. And we can talk about the financing of that later on. So.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Vanessa, would you be able to tell us what exactly is a FAFSA? When should a student complete one? And is there anything in particular that an aspiring HBCU student should be aware of in terms of the FAFSA?
So what is FAFSA? It's an acronym that stands for Free Application for Student Aid. And quite simply, FAFSA does not give you money, but FAFSA is the tool that is used by the federal government, the state government, the college itself, and even in many cases for external scholarships to determine need-based aid. That's all it is. FAFSA, the FAFSA portal opens up October 1 of every year. So if you are a returning student, or if you are a current junior or will be continuing college, October 1 of 2022, you will be able to start your FAFSA for school year 2023-2024, utilizing the tax information from 2021. So they use 2 years prior, something called prior. I would say one of the biggest issue is that parents and students do not do things in a timely fashion. They wait far too late. There are even some federal monies that are tied to how early you complete a FAFSA. So if any takeaway, October 1, if you are a junior and will be a senior in the fall, if you are will be continuing college in the school year 23-24, October 1. Now, just let me throw this out there. FAFSA is not the only financial aid application. There's another financial aid application, is actually a need analysis application. However, there's only one HBCU that requires that, and that's Alabama A&M. So, and that also opens up October 1. So I just wanted to get that bit of information as well.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sparks. That was awesome. I'm going to keep the mic on you for a sec, because I want to follow it up, because Ms. Lowe made a very good point, right? A lot of times the scholarships are primarily for those students who have the grades. And so my question is, do you have to be a straight A student in order to receive a scholarship, right? What help can be provided to students who have average grades? Most scholarships are for those exceptional students. So what about our average folks?
Well, let me just say this. Most students are average students. Most students are, and when we say average, meaning they don't have a 4.0 GPA, and they don't have a 1600 SAT, and they don't have a 36 ACT. Most students, as most people, are average. There is a lot of money, and that term exceptional is very subjective, depending on where it is and who you're talking to. But there are tons of scholarships. There are thousands and thousands of local scholarships that go unused because students don't know about those scholarships. $500, $1,000, $5,000 that are locally based. There are scholarships that are tied to your religious affiliation. There are scholarships that are tied to, here's a big one. We're in New York City, right? New York City, New York State is a huge union town. There are many, many scholarships that are for the dependents of students whose parents are in unions that go untouched, unmatched. So it's a question of starting this process early. This is not a process that you want to start October 1st of your senior year. This is a process you actually want to begin even your sophomore year, to begin to identify scholarships. Because most scholarship applications, and I'm speaking of external scholarships, they don't change. So get in the habit of looking and kicking over rocks, as I believe it was Ms. Lowe said, it was like, or someone said, like shaking a tree. You just have to be diligent in looking for that money.
So can I interject for a minute?
Of course, please do.
So when we talk about financing the education, any HBCU education, we need to talk about the expectations. When you're choosing a university, you're, as a parent, because I'm an HBCU grad, it's, I'm going to look at education in a completely different way. We have a lot of first generation college students, as is my experience. It was really surprising to me going back on campus and realizing that we still do have a lot of firsts. So when you look at financing, look at the university and check out the cost of attendance. That's important, because you need to know what the cost is, and then you can chip away at it. I literally, and you guys will probably get to this at the end of it, I have a story. I literally once my daughter decided on these schools, Temple, she got into University of Michigan, Morgan, FAMU. So I literally put the cost of attendance, dorm, I put every cost that I was going to, athletic fee, I put everything in so I could see it. She also scored very well on the SAT and the ACT. She had a GPA. That mattered. She was a national merit finalist for ACT, for the SAT. So that mattered too. But as her mother, who, in transparency, I wasn't at all prepared at the increase in the cost, though I had a number in my head and I came very close to that. Find out how much it actually costs to attend the university of your choice. That's so important, because it seems daunting when you're just thinking, oh, it's so expensive, and you hear about the debt. Figure out how much it is and figure out how you can attack that, be it financial aid, with scholarships, with whatever your family, however your family can support you. And support isn't always tuition. Support could be the aunt that sends you $100 a month. Support could be the church that gives you a $500 book voucher. Book vouchers, every kid, every parent on here, send your kid to the Office of Student Affairs on at whatever university they go to and ask for a book voucher. Majority, minority. Send your kid, make them take a picture in front of the door, because they can get, so that's $500 that they can get because they give out book vouchers. And a lot of times it's asking, but know how much it costs. Like I can tell you per credit hour, that's not going to mean anything to a student, but I can tell you that off the top of my head, my daughter's meal plan for her first semester, just for one semester, was $1,990 for one semester. That was for the meal plan. So I already know that's $1,990. Her ID was $5. Per credit hour, because she was out of state, was $562 per credit hour. Her dorm, based on the dorm that I chose for her, that was $22.35 per semester. So I laid all of that out. So that first semester, after I looked at her FAFSA and they said, oh, she's eligible for this based on the scholarships that she got, I knew, okay, I'm gonna come out of my pocket about $8,000. That was the difference. So when you pick your university, please look at how much it costs to attend. That's important, because just kind of, saying it's overwhelming, but it can be done as someone who did it.
And I just want to interject and piggyback on Ms. Lowe. As a parent, both of my sons, they did not attend HBCUs. However, they were at PWIs. And just as Ms. Lowe was saying, like just having that plan and looking at the cost and just being organized. Like I had to literally get a notebook, organize, the names of the college that, my sons put down, the cost, the financial aid, the meal plans, and PWIs are expensive. But just as she was saying, I looked at the merit scholarships because my son had excellent grades. He scored well on his SATs and ACTs. His meal plan at a PWI is like $2,700 each semester. So, but again, you're talking about a PWI, but I've made myself get so organized with a notebook, all the costs and everything, the name of the colleges, traveling fees, if they were out of state, when they come home, what that traveling was going to look like during the holiday breaks, like just factoring all of that stuff in as far as books and everything. Even, they did book rentals. So aside from having a voucher, there's also Amazon where you could rent textbooks, where it's like maybe $90 for the semester, or even Chubbs, which is also another, rental company. But definitely, have a plan of action and, have a notebook, make sure you're organized, and start as early as 10th grade, because my daughter's a freshman now. So I'm in the process ready. Like I've been asking her, okay, let's start looking at colleges. And, your children will think to you like, oh my, it's too early for that. It's never too early.
Right.
I want to add something else. I'm sorry. In addition to those direct or indirect college costs, here's some other fees. Once your child is accepted to a college, you have to pay a deposit. Mm-hmm. You have to pay a housing deposit. You will probably take them for orientation or, right before. All of those are costs that are associated with colleges, but not part of a financial aid award. So if you can start doing anything, I would say to parents and even students, the beginning of their senior year, if you can put, I kid you not, even if you could only afford to put $10 or $15 away a month, because once your child is accepted, you have to send a deposit check. You have to send a housing check. Here's a fee. I throw this out there. When you get your award letter, go through that award letter with a fine-tooth comb and find out and see if there are any expenses in there that you can shave off. For example, a lot of parents don't know, every college will put on the award letter for health insurance because it's a federal requirement. Now, sometimes schools will do this. They will bundle that up and put it under miscellaneous. You have to ask what encompasses miscellaneous. So, and I'm telling you, it's a federal law. Every college in the United States charges health insurance. What you ask, and it could be anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000. If you carry insurance, your employer-sponsored insurance, and your child is covered, you let the school know, and they'll take that charge off. So we have to begin to also, when we get those awards, go through them with a fine-tooth comb and ask, what is this charge? Some of the charges are non-negotiable. Those are direct charges. But there's maybe some wiggle room with some of the other things. Ms. Trotman talked about books, a book rental fee. That I know when I was in school and I was a working adult, I loved Chubb. I rented my books. Those are things you want to look at. So begin, once you get those award letters, really go through them with a fine-tooth comb and ask, how can I shave off any of these expenses?
Thank you. I think Erin's been trying to jump in too.
I just wanted to say, and all this information is very good. I mean, everyone should be taking notes if they can, because this is invaluable. But I wanted to harp on something that Ms. Lowe did mention very quickly when she was speaking. She mentioned that a lot of it is asking, and I couldn't agree more. There are so many opportunities that are missed and so much information that is never known just from the simple fact of not asking. Asking you shall receive, seeking you shall find, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. There's so many ways to say it, but I'm emphasizing that because a lot of what you will find, especially in an HBCU culture, is that these administrators, your advisors, they want to see you succeed. They, what I think is so special about an HBCU is that your advisors, your administration, your professors, a lot of them see themselves in you. They were a student, they were a Black student, and a lot of them were a Black student at an HBCU. And so they want to help you in any way they can. I know, personally speaking, my mother, she is a proud alumna of Morgan State as well. And she has, the personal experience of running low on her tuition her first semester. And she went to the dean with her grades, and the dean was able to increase her scholarship just from the simple fact that she went and she asked. So the culture in HBCU is one where they want to see you succeed. They do care for their students, and they take a lot of personal time out with their students. And there's a lot of good relationships garnered and networking relationships garnered just from speaking to your superiors at an HBCU. So that's one thing that I will never stop emphasizing is just ask. Even if they're not a financial authority, they can tell you where to go. And as the other panelists have mentioned, there are churches, there are other institutions that are not necessarily affiliated with the school, but have scholarships and grants of their own that they're willing to give. So if you talk to an administrator or a professor, even though they may not have the financial authority or expertise, they can say, hey, my church has this scholarship, or hey, I'm a part of this group. My mother's chapter in Houston of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated actually had some funds for their scholarship that weren't even used because people didn't apply, they didn't get enough applicants because it just wasn't known. So that's all I would say. Ask, ask, ask. Don't ever be afraid to ask.
You guys are really dropping a lot of gems this morning. And for everyone in attendance, I really hope you have pen and paper because this is a lot of information and it's useful information. You guys actually touched on what one of my questions was going to be. What are some other expenses outside of just tuition? Because I feel like a lot of times when people are talking about funding and education, it's all about tuition, tuition, tuition. So I'm just going to kind of recap some of what I heard you say. And then if any of you guys feel like I missed something, please jump in and add that. But I really want to make sure that people are going home knowing that there are other costs associated with the education outside of just the tuition. So first of all, there is a difference for some schools between in-state and out-of-state students, right? The tuition could be different. Yes, you do have a meal plan outside of your tuition. You have to pay for books. You have to put down a deposit and you have to pay for, you guys said it as housing, but I believe on the paperwork, it will say room and board. Am I missing anything? Are there other costs that people should be aware of?
There are lab fees, athletic fees, transportation fees,
Security.
and
Security deposits.
Well, the deposit, from my experience, the deposit that you typically have to send into the school, well, for the schools that I'm familiar with, typically are to hold your spot. And they don't from my experience, they aren't all that, they're not really high. So a couple $100 from my experience, it's nothing that's, going to alarm you. So when you talk about, but these are fees, these are the things that are going to, so when you talk about dorm, like if they're gonna, and I recommend, because it tends to be cheaper unless you're gonna buy a property in the city that they're going to, I recommend that every student, at least for the first year, stay on campus.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the reason that I say this is because you learn your campus. You learn your culture of your campus. And it's the first time that they're kind of free to run their own schedules, like to get up and go to class. And so when you're at the place that you're supposed to be already, that kind of helps. That'll take a little stress off the parents because freshman year, they are all nuts. So, I warn every parent, oh, don't worry about it. They'll stress you out, but they'll be okay. But they should stay on campus. So when you talk about, dorm, they need things for their dorm room at minimum, refrigerator, a microwave, sheets, bedspreads, things to locker, so shower shoes, if that's even, well, still, yeah, because usually even in the suites, they're sharing, a bathroom with other people. So just those things. So those are other costs of attendance. But again, I look at church support, community support. The sorority is supportive of that. Your community organizations, because there are, outside of, if you get that bill taken care of, you still have transportation to get there. Now, the transportation fee that I was talking about is a transportation fee that you're going to find on your bill for one reason or another. I think,
yes,
in most cities, all students can ride public transportation with their ID. I think it's fluid. So there's going to be a small fee that is going to be on your on your bill. So those are the things.
I think it's, there's some locked in fees for everyone, as you said, tuition, room and board, certain fees. But there's, depending on where the school is at. So I'll use myself as an example. I'm from New York City. My daughter went to college in Atlanta. I didn't have any family there. I don't drive because I'm from New York City, and we ain't really got to drive. So when I had to take her down there, that meant I had to pay airfare for 2 people, and twice, because we had to go in June, and then when I moved her in, I had there were, like, I had someone kind of drive me around to pick up this, that, and the third. These are all of these other costs that are associated that are outside of the scope of financial aid. That means they're not covered by financial aid. These are costs that come directly out of your pocket. For some parents, particularly when you talk about first generation parents, first generation students, some of these costs are very unfamiliar to the parent, and they can be very daunting. So again, this is about preparation. If you have, even if you, I mean, yes, this is an HBCU event, but even if you're in New York and you go to school in New York and you think a whole lot of savings, there's still certain costs that are associated outside of that financial aid award. And the best way to get a jump on that is to prepare. Start. If all you can do is put $10 a month away, you know what? Put that $10 a month away. When, holiday times and birthdays and, extended families will give, usually teenagers, they give them money. They just don't buy them anything. Encourage your student to put some of that money away to help defray the cost. It takes a lot of stress off the family, and it takes a lot of stress off the student.
Thank you, Ms. Sparks. Ms. Sparks put a lot of emphasis on preparing. So, Santasha, as a parent, I have a question for you. What advice would you give to a parent who has an aspiring child, a child aspiring to attend an HBCU in terms of preparing for the financial aid process?
So I know from my experience, I started early. So with my first son going to college, I started in 10th grade, looking at different colleges, and we started applying, we started doing tours and everything, and not waiting to that senior year because it just becomes so overwhelming. So that was a valuable lesson for me. So I had my first son going to college and then the second one. So I think as I go through each child, the process for me just gets a little better because I'm learning things that I didn't learn during the first time or the second time. So I'm better prepared when my daughter goes. But for me, just for a parent to just be organized, like, have a book, have a system, whether it's color coded or whatever, like just have everything outlined and plan of what you're doing, what your next steps are, doing the research, as Ms. Lowe said, looking at the cost, writing that down, doing comparison, looking at the scholarships that they're being awarded and comparing the money. And again, it is time consuming. At times it can be tedious. However, you want to get the best bang for your buck as well, and planning out your fees, making sure that you do have, enough money for what it is, your child is going to study or what school. And as Ms. Sparks said, aside from any FAFSA or any type of college fees, I had to look at, my son went to SUNY Fredonia. That's still within New York. However, it's 7.5 hours away. And I wasn't driving up there all the time to get him. So I had to think about, okay, I may need him to fly home. So that was money that has nothing to do with any financial aid or anything, putting that money to the side for him to come home for Thanksgiving, for him to come home for Christmas, or for him to come home for spring break, as well as at the end of the semester, where was he putting all of his belongings? I had to get a storage unit. So, that was something because I wasn't going to keep traveling back and forth every year, to bring his belongings back and forth. So those are those little things, as Ms. Sparks said, to just have some cash money on the side for that, because financial aid, scholarships and stuff is not going to cover that. But overall, plan, and have a plan, be organized with it and follow up.
Thank you so much, Ms. Troutman. Ms. Lowe? Mm-hmm.
So as a two-time HBCU graduate, the mother of an HBCU graduate who also attended Emory University for graduate school, I'll have to say this. Some of those hidden costs, we can talk about travel, right? And this is going back to my HBCU experience. And this is why going to an HBCU is different than anywhere else you could go. My daughter decided she wanted to go to FAMU. My freshman sister she's from Portland. I met a girl the Sunday before my first day of class. We have been friends since that day. She moved to Tallahassee. She got married randomly years and years later, and she happened to be there. And I said, hey, I'm coming. And she was like, you're coming to our house. We got you. Everything that we do as a network, every month of my daughter's freshman year, my line sisters sent her a box. Every month, every one of them sent her a care package. Kelly sent lip gloss and nail polish and things like that, gift cards, everyone. So for her freshman year, she got to give a care package from my line sisters every month. I ran into financial issues. I got downsized her freshman year. I had to reach out. I was like, I have this much, this is how much. And Kelly probably doesn't even know this story. I reached out to a couple of my line sisters and I said, hey, this is how I'm short. This is how much I'm short, because I don't have one Parent Plus loan. I don't have one. I paid out of my pocket. My line sisters came through. Hbcu. I pick up the phone and call for students that are not even related to me. And because it's an HBCU and I know who to talk to and I know how to find the people, those relationships serve us so much longer and so much farther than when we're matriculating. It was the best choice my mother ever made for me because I was going to University of Michigan. The best choice. So anybody, any parent that's on this call, it may be daunting, but it will serve your family for generations.
Yeah, can I say this? Because I work with all sorts of families. I work with students that have very supportive parents, and I work with students whose parents are not so supportive.
Yeah.
So I love your story, Ms. Lowe, because now that my daughter, don't tell her she's 40. She don't like me to say let people know she's 40, but now that she's gone, and just so you know, Ms. Lowe, my son-in-law is a rattler. He is a rattler, okay? So they have those experiences now.
Yeah.
But I work with students who have no family support. Yeah. I mean, zero. They're navigating this on their own. So when I speak, I'm kind of speaking not just to the people, not just to students that have support. And I don't mean just financial support, because some people don't have parental, their parents don't have a lot to give them extra, but they're very supportive. And I've worked with students whose parents do have the financial wherewithal, but they're not supportive. And I work with both. So what I want to say, so right now I'm going to talk to if there are any students that find themselves in that position. This is the time that you want to try to reach out to people. You have this amazing chapter of AKA as a resource. There are other resources to help you navigate this, because there are a lot, unfortunately, we have a lot of students who just do not have family support, not just to go to college, but to go to an HBCU. I've worked with families, with students whose parents have said, well, if they go to school X, Y, and Z, I will be supportive. But if they go to another, whatever the school is, I'm not going to be as supportive.
So I will say this because it is close, near and dear to my heart. These 4, 5, 6 years, however long it takes them to get through, these years change everything. I've worked, as you heard, everywhere, but never has the work that I've done meant so much. If there's any parent, any student, or anyone who has a question about anything dealing with the process, I'm open. And I'm undefeated when it comes to making sure that students that look like me are educated. So whatever you don't know, I know it, or I know somebody that does. And I also am where the money resides because I raised real money, millions of dollars. And when I negotiate for the money that I raise, when I talk to the people who are interested in our human resources at our HBCUs, I advocate for students who are whole student body. It doesn't necessarily just need to be a 3.5 student, right? Because I have to look at, we need some 3.0s, we need some 2.7s. So, and I have so I've been creative in how I have generated some opportunities. And I also am the person, as Erin said, her mother was short on money. For some odd reason, the kids find me. And they'll say, somebody told me to come see you. I don't have a kid facing position really, but they find me. And I have this iPad that I carry around and I'll pull up your iRattler, right? I need to see your GPA because before I go down here fighting for you, I need to know what I'm fighting for. And I get it. And you know why I can get it? Because I'm the one who made the money. So I think you guys are trying to find me on the campus, but I can help you find the me. No, seriously, like it's cash. Like we need money. Our kids need to be able to finish school. I'm the parent. I always joke and tell my daughter, like I could help more students, than just you. You tell students what you know. You aren't the student I was, right? You're different. But there are good people. And a lot of it is just not knowing. So that is heartfelt. And I mean that. I don't care where you are in the country. Trust me. I went to FAMU. We are everywhere. But I also am a salesperson. So I can call somebody on the phone and figure it out. But if you need anything, if you have any questions, if you need any guidance, I am open to that. My information, you can get it from Kelly, but I mean that. So this is one of those times where I would say, don't block your blessings and use your resources. That's all I got.
Well, that's so powerful. And I really hope that you guys are taking heed. You might want to send her a private message right now, but like Erin said, closed mouths don't get fed. So she's putting herself out there. She's telling you, use me, I'm available. So take heed. Erin, you wanted to jump in and say something?
That what Ms. Lowe and all of our panelists are saying is 100% true. When it comes to an HBCU, faculty and staff like Ms. Lowe is who you're going to get. She is not an anomaly. She is not the only person who's like that. That's the culture that you get when you're at an HBCU. These are the people who are going to be working with your students, parents. These are the people who are going to be working with your children. They're going to treat them as if they're their own. And I can speak from experience that, like she said, they're everywhere. It's not just in Florida. It's not just, if you go to a certain school in that state, they are everywhere. They'll go out of state. I went to North Carolina A&T and I'm walking down the street in Houston, Texas with my shirt on and getting told Aggie Pride. So I'm telling you, they're everywhere. I know the topic right now is of funding education and getting scholarships, but just for after school and anything, any experiences that you think may aid you in your career, in your academic career, or in your work career, they will help you if you just ask. My first internship that I got was from my advisor. He was from North Carolina. Lo and behold, he went to Morgan State University. And when I told him that my parents were alums, he connected me with someone in Houston, Texas, and got me my first legal internship. So that sense of community, that sense of they want to see us succeed is so very prevalent in any HBCU that you go to.
Yes, let me just tell this quick story. When my daughter was an undergrad, her junior year, that year, her financial aid award was not as good as the prior 2 years and then subsequent year. And I was a very, very hands-on, very, very hands-on. And at that time, I worked in a medical school admissions office. So I had, some knowledge in how to navigate this. So I actually called the provost's office, And the secretary answered, and I told her who I was and why I called. And as she and I continued to converse, I found out she was from New York, from Queens, New York. And she said to me, "Do you know a restaurant, Carmichael's?" I said, "Of course I know Carmichael's restaurant over on, well, then, New York Boulevard." She said, "Do you know so-and-so?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, that's my mother." I said, "Really?" She said, "I will make sure that he gets the message." Within about 2 hours, they called me back and they had found an additional $6,000 for my daughter. That only happens at, I kid you not, at an HBCU. So for everyone that's listening, one of the uniqueness of going to an HBCU is how these people will go to the carpet for you. I've worked with a student a couple of years ago who did not go to an HBCU, went to a PWI in another state. Oh, and this is what I want to say, because, when we talk about HBCUs, PWIs, we're making the assumption that all PWIs are created equal. All PWIs are not Duke, they're not Emory, they're not Princeton, they're not, they're not, let's say, for lack of a better term, that caliber. So, I just want to throw that out, because when people say PWIs, they talk as if all of them are these magical places that have all of this money that they're willing to give to students. And that's not the case, because this young lady went to a PWI in another state, was doing very well, got to her senior year. They let this family take out private student loans that they really could not afford. The young lady got to her senior year and, everything was tapped out. And they let her go. Didn't try to assist her find any money. So now this young lady, 3.5 years of undergrad, had to come back home because she owes the school money. She can't even have her transcripts released to another school, and she's stuck in this quandary. And I just know that never would have happened at an HBCU. When you get to your senior year, and then you hit this financial brick wall, and they just kind of say, "Sorry, not sorry."
Yes, that's very powerful. And I tease in the beginning when I say HBCUs are the best, but that's where it's coming from. And as someone who has attended both, right, undergrad for HBCU, and I got my master's from PWI, it is different. The love and the nurturing that you receive from HBCUs, it's unmatched. And like all of you guys on here have said, they genuinely want to see us succeed. So they're not going to just kick you out the door. They're going to work with you. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry, guys. Is it possible, Sister Kim, Juanita Battle? So sorry. Interference. They're not going to just kick you out. They're going to try to see what resources they can pull from, before just letting you go. And I know some of my own sisters at Bennett who have been in that boat. And they're like, they're working with me. They're going to get me this work study. They're going to let me be an RA or an RD. And I do want you guys to touch on those sorts of things in a bit. I do see Ms. Lowe has her hand up, and then I'll follow up with another question.
So I kind of just want to, for the parents on here, when we talk about, she's talking about, they get to the senior year and, they run out of money. There is an amount of money in loans that you can get undergrad, that where you max out. But what I will say is that schools are on top of that. So you're not going to run into that. And everybody is eligible for federal loans. Private loans, come into account, and that's a whole different spiel. But every student, no matter what school they go to, as a freshman, $6,500, and that's $5,500, $6,500, and $7,500. And what that is at 30 hours, which you're a freshman, then 60 hours, then you're a junior and a senior. So those are the amounts. per year. So that's split between
I
a
want to follow
semester.
up on this. When I work with families, I'm a very realistic person, and I never say to a family that they may not have to take a loan. I never say that because you just never know. But what I do say, I encourage people that if you have to take a loan, only take a federal loan. Private loans that are administered through, a bank or credit union, their interest rates are different. The terms of their interest rates are different. They all require a co-signer, okay? The young lady I was talking about, she did get the federal loan, but and where she went to school, the cost of attendance was, by the way, $61,000 a year. So yeah, where she went, it was $61,000 a year. And that the school did not do in my opinion, they didn't do any kind of job in educating her parents, her family, to say, when you take out this private loan, the terms of repayment are different. The interest rate is different. A federal loan, the max you can take out in a 5-year period of time is $51,000 a year. That's over 5 years. And that's the student's loan. I'm not talking about a parent loan. I'm talking about what they call the direct, sub, and unsubsidized loan. So if you have to, please, I have seen far too many families jack themselves up in taking private loans, particularly during this pandemic, because there was a moratorium on repayment of federal loans, but there was not a moratorium on the repayment of private loans. The interest rates on a federal loan is fixed. They're fixed right now, I think, because the interest rate just went up maybe 4%. It's going to go up to about 4%, which is still very good. And that's fixed over the life of the loan. Where a private loan, the interest rate could be fluid depending on what the interest rate in the country is. And the repayment of those loans are always different. So I just want to throw that out there. But this particular young lady went to school, cost of attendance $61,000 a year. They let her get to senior year. Her family had racked up about $140,000 in private loans for them not to help her. And she's still stuck with paying those private loans back now.
Was that a private institution?
Had to be, I'm assuming.
Yes, it was.
So I think we also need to highlight the fact that we do have HBCUs that are private institutions, where when you talk about your Howard, when you talk about your Spelmans, Hampton, so the cost of attendance is going to be higher than your state institutions that are HBCUs. But again, that all ties back to my initial, when you identify the university that you want to attend, go to their website and check out the cost of attendance.
There's something I want to tell you that a lot of people don't know. So I don't know if everybody that's an attendee here is from New York. So if we go to a public institution outside of the state, we would be paying out of state tuition. Now, some schools, what they will do, if you go to Southern will, after a year, you can apply for in-state residency, and then your tuition will become in-state. But there's another little program that a lot of people don't know about, and it's divided up by regions. And unfortunately, New York is not in the region. That if you attend an HBCU within a 250-mile radius, you get a discount. So for example, if you, FAMU's in Florida, and let's say you live in Georgia, FAMU is a public institution. So an out-of-state resident would pay more, but it's within a 250-mile radius. That student would be eligible for a discount. And it's grouped together. There's a Southwestern region, there's a Western region, there's a New England region. But unfortunately, for those of us that live in New York, which would be considered like the mid-Atlantic, there's no such program like that.
What organization supports that? Where would they?
As you guys are talking, I'm gonna mute myself and I'm gonna pull it up on my phone.
Okay,
and
that's good information.
In the chat, okay?
Thanks, Ms. Sparks. Appreciate that. Ms. Lowe, can you kind of just tell us, like, Ms. Sparks was touching on it, but what's the difference between, I'm gonna say 3 different ones. The difference between a scholarship versus a grant, the difference between a subsidized loan versus an unsubsidized loan, and the difference between federal loans and private loans. Did you catch all that?
So scholarship and a grant. The grants typically are awarded by the institution. Both scholarships and grants do not need to be paid back, so you're good. A scholarship you typically have to apply for. A grant, oftentimes, I'll say for Florida, they'll look at the expected family contribution, EFC, which is the report that's kicked out from the FAFSA. So there's this report that says, this is how much, this number is how much your family can afford to pay. It's never accurate, so don't panic. So once they have one of those, the institution will look, and they will. So I think maybe Ms. Sparks said it earlier, that the earlier that you fill out your FAFSA, there's that institutional support. So those grants are usually awarded for the earlier, because they only have so many of those. So we also, did I answer that? Is that clear?
Yes, that was perfect. I hope
neither one of them you need to pay back. So
that's the fundamental takeaway.
Yeah.
Like scholarships and grants, we don't pay back. Scholarships typically pay for, grants typically you can just get them.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay.
That's another ask, as Anna would say, go ask. Yes. If any are available. So you look at where we talk loans, are we at
yes,
loans?
Unsubsidized versus subsidized.
Your unsub and your subsidized. I know we have Ms. Sparks, you're the financial aid person, but even as the mom, I believe that the unsub and the sub, one starts accruing interest as at award, and the other one starts accruing after graduation.
Right, and subsidized loan is based upon need. Most students receive both. So when you get a financial aid award letter, that $5,500, if you are awarded a need-based loan, 3,500 of that is a subsidized and 2,000 is an unsubsidized. But there are ways that they will just put the interest sort of on the back end of the loan. So because the federal government pays the interest on the subsidized loan while you're in school, where an unsub doesn't. But there's a way, they just put it on kind of the back end, so to speak. So unless you or your family want to, you don't have to pay that loan while you're a student in school.
You don't have to pay any of the loans, but the interest starts accruing on your.
I say this to everybody. 6 months after you leave school, and I always explain, not graduate, leave school. So if you leave school before graduation, within 6 months, you have to start paying those federal loans back. And I'm speaking only to federal loans because there are different criteria for a private loan depending on who you receive their private loan from.
Okay.
And you are unable, because there are students that graduate, and that's a whole other situation. There are students that graduate who are underemployed.
Right. No.
And they may not be able to pay. So you do have an option for forbearance or deferment.
And I'm gonna go back, a federal loan. I have to go back. Federal loan. Private loans are different. Private loans are very different. So this is where you, as Ms. Lowe and Ms. Trotman and Ms. Thompson, this is why getting involved with this process early on is so important, because I believe in turnkey information, meaning you empower yourself. So when you have to walk down this road, you have a certain knowledge base. You have a certain knowledge base. Private loans, okay, so we just we're still in this pandemic, so to speak, but we went through particularly 2020 and 2021, where federal loans, they put a moratorium on them. That was not the case with a lot of private loans. They were still requiring people begin to repay them. So you want to do your research. Ms. Lowe talked about really knowing the cost of attendance of whatever schools you're looking at. That's very important because this is a family decision. This could be it's a financial decision. So it's a family decision. So you want to do your research. You want to do your homework. You know, some students have what they call their dream school, whatever that may be. But they also have to look at other schools because they want to make sure that they don't financially bankrupt their future. You know, particularly if you're talking about going to graduate school and doing things afterwards. You don't want to bankrupt yourself at the undergrad level because graduate school is always so much more. So you want to, this is why it's so important to do your research early on. So I put this in the chat. It's called State and Regional College Tuition Discounts.
Thank you.
And it's grouped together when we're talking about HBCUs. There's the southern region, and that includes the states. I'm just going to say this and mute myself. Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and West Virginia. Only North Carolina is not included.
Thank you.
So I just want to interject for 1 second. So let me be very, very clear. Again, HBCUs is what I do. I am a product of 2 of them. And I sent a child to one of them and graduated. One of my kids is at the White House and graduated many, many more. We don't push private loans. Even as a parent going into a financial aid office, I need to tell you at an HBCU, that was never a conversation. So I don't want anybody to be, you know, alarmed by that. I tend to deal with what the financial aid offices are dealing with. And that is going to be that free application for financial aid, the expected family contribution, which is never right. And what you can get, which is if a Pell Grant, if you're eligible, which is, we talked about grants earlier, but sub, unsub, and a parent loan are likely what's going to be on everyone's FAFSA in America.
Oh, and I just want to throw this in. Earlier, I spoke about there's a pot of federal money that a lot of students, even eligible students, don't get because they don't complete their FAFSA in a timely fashion. That's the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, and that's up to $4,000. But that's kind of first come, first served money. So if you complete your FAFSA, let's say in the first 45 days of opening, so like from October 1 to let's say November 15th or even the end of November, your chances of being able to receive that money are far greater than if you wait until February to complete your FAFSA, because oftentimes that pot of money is gone. So that's what I mean about doing these things in a very, very timely fashion. And I'm glad, Ms. Lowe, you're right. At many of the HBCUs, they don't do a lot of discussion regarding private loans. But again, I guess most of the people or many of the people here are from New York. And I can tell you for a fact, the high schools that many of these students attend, when they do these financial aid workshops, they talk about, they give them information on private loans. Because as I said, you know, families come in all kinds of different ways, right? And student A's experience may be different than student B, even if they live in the same city, even if they live in the same neighborhood, even if they go to the same school here. And those of us from New York City, we can definitely attest to the unevenness within the public school system. It's a big unevenness. So when they talk about loans, yes, they'll talk about federal loans, but then they will say to parents, oh, well, you know, you can also take out, or say to the, you know, the family, I shouldn't say the student, you could take out a loan from whatever it is, not explaining that that is a private loan and the implications of taking a private loan. So you're right. And I think a lot of it has to do with where you're at in the country. I'm glad this is an HBCU forum because many students do not get information or inadequate information regarding historically Black colleges and universities. There's still a lot of guidance counselors here that are discouraging and dissuading students from even applying here in New York. And I mean, in 2022, that's a reality. We have many students who here in New York, we have, we talk about African American, that's such a broad term, but we have families whose families are from the Caribbean or from the continent, and the student is a first generation American. So they don't have the same kind of familiar connection with an HBCU than, let's say, someone whose family is from the South, even if they grew up here. So I like to say, I talk to every person, every student, wherever you may fall. So that's why I wanted to really address that issue about those private loans.
Thanks, Ms. Sparks. I do think that that's very important. So I'm glad that you guys kind of mentioned that. And so everybody on this call, if you don't take anything else away, kind of stay away from those private loans. And I know we talked a lot about scholarships. Erin, I want to give you a chance. Can you just share any scholarships that you may have received?
Yes, I can. So in undergrad, I did receive an academic scholarship from North Carolina A&T. And I also received an academic scholarship from Thurgood postgraduate once I went to law school. And I also was aware of, so the associations within the school, like the Honor Society that I was a part of and the National Black Law Student Association, they also offer their own scholarships as well, because a lot of times they will be funded by people and associations not necessarily affiliated with the school. So they get funding from them as well and have money for scholarships. I also looked online. That's a very important resource. I know we all know that. I mean, we all know that online is a very important resource. And like many of the panelists have said, your scholarship does not need to be centered around academics at all. There are scholarships for your socially economic background. There are scholarships for your ethnicity. There are scholarships for your religious beliefs, as it has been mentioned. And so there are a lot of opportunities. It's not just academic, but the scholarships I received were academic. And if someone feels that they are on that route to be eligible to receive academic scholarships, I would say apply to as many as you can. Every dollar amount counts, every cent counts. It does not matter how much the money is, it will be useful to you. And I know a lot of the application processes for these scholarships may be daunting whenever you're adding that on to applying to schools where you already have to do an essay for the application, and then you're applying to scholarships where you have to do an essay for the scholarship. That will be the most helpful to you. One of the most helpful things to you in your academic career is doing that essay. And a lot of the times for these scholarship essays, you can use, one essay and tweak it and tailor it to another scholarship. And so that's also a technique to use to just get more money and more funds for school. There are so many resources out there, so many opportunities out there. Talk to your advisors, talk to your church. There are a lot of resources.
That was great advice, Erin. Thanks so much. So this has been awesome. You guys are amazing. I'm going to ask one final question, and I would like for each of you to give your input. So we can kind of just go around, and you can choose either tell me what's something that you know now that you wish that you knew at the beginning of this process, or what was the most beneficial resource in navigating through the financial aid process. And we can start with Santasha and then just go around from there.
So for me, with my children, I have all my children have a 529 plan. And my oldest son, being that he graduated, the money that I saved for him in his plan, I was able to close it out and disperse it to my other two children that are left. For me, I wish I would have started that as soon as I knew I was pregnant with them. because it was almost like trying to play catch up, especially with my oldest son. You know, I said I was able to save some money, but I wish I would have saved more. But I know by the time my daughter gets ready to go to school, she'll have more than what my two sons had overall. So I wish I would have started that savings a little earlier or had some guidance or something around that. But it's never too late to start.
Never too late. Thank you. All right. Erin, you want to jump in?
Yes, and I just want to thank you guys also for having this forum in this space. I think it's really important that, you know, young youth, Black youth have spaces like this to get educated. But something that I wish I knew going into this process that I know now is that the stigma, basically what this whole entire panel is about, this forum is about, the stigma behind HBCUs either not granting the money or not having the money. And for me, I know myself, that stigma was garnered for me because I knew a lot of HBCUs did not get the funding that PWIs got. And so for me, I was just like, it doesn't really make sense that they would have the money because they don't get the funding that PWIs get. And so it wasn't really a thing about them being stingy or not. Like, I just thought that they couldn't because they didn't get the funding that they needed. But I know now that they can and they do. And so I think that's something that's really important to look into as a prospective student. And even when you're matriculating through high school, I know that that students in high schools have a lot on their plate already. But looking into college and looking in how to fund it, just keep that in the back of your head that you will be able to fund your HBCU education. They do give money, and ask. That's the message that I will harp on for this entire forum, is just ask anyone you know, anyone who knows somebody that knows somebody, because it will really be the difference between you going to school or you not going to school, or you having money for a semester, or you not. Like, one question or one conversation with one person can be that difference. And I know Miss Lowe probably has countless stories that she can attest to where she was the determining factor in whether somebody stayed or not.
Right. Thanks so much, Erin. Casey, you can jump in.
So what's the question? What do I wish I knew?
Either, so you could choose to answer either what's something that you know now that you wish you knew at the beginning of this whole process, or what was the most beneficial resource in terms of helping navigate the financial aid process?
Well, the most beneficial resource in helping me navigate the financial aid process was me, having been a student. I was very in tune to what my mother was giving me, right? So, and again, just the information and attacking it from, this is what it's going to take us to get this done. What I want people to walk away with, because I also, anytime that I'm in a forum like this, I look at it from people that don't know and people that do. And what I will tell parents, your HBCU is not still your HBCU. Attendance and the processes, they've changed. The culture is still very fluid and connected, but just the way that business is carried out has changed. The players have changed. And we tend to have these ideas of this is how it was when I went to school. That's what I wish I had known. Like, I tell all my friends, and because I was very involved, but it was a lived experience because I worked it and I got to see the struggles and the parents that didn't have the support. So what I will say is that this is a great forum, but I'm always looking for the way that I would feel if I walked away from it. As someone who knew nothing or who was worried or stressed out about sending my kid to college. So I'm going to leave you with this as a mom who was stressed out and actually knew what to do, but I worked for it. So you're going to fill out your FAFSA. That's the free financial aid that will allow you to get scholarships at any HBCU. If you do not have a FAFSA and are awarded a scholarship, you will still need to fill out a FAFSA. For students who do not have their parent support, there is a particular form that they can fill out with financial aid that kind of works around that. Because as Ms. Sparks said, a lot of students may not have that student support. People don't want to share their tax information, and they are not supporting their matriculation as well, but they are not typically independent students. As a freshman, your student will be awarded or will have available $5,500 in federal funds, subbed and unsubbed, period. Whether they take it is up to you. I'll say don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of that. I believe that every student needs to have skin in the game. As a mother that paid out of her pocket, you're going to have skin in the game. So don't be afraid of that. Don't let the student loan conversation scare you. What they major in is important. Now, all these kids with this passion, your passion is gonna make you poor. Do what you gotta do to get where you wanna get to. You have to look at the return on the investment, right? So look at that as a parent, because it will bowl you over. When they walk across the stage, they need to be going to grad school or they need to be going to somebody's employment, because bills do come due. And more than anything, no question is stupid. Ask the questions. Find somebody. Again, like I said, you can text me, you can call me. But those are the things you're dealing with. So already off rip, you know you got $5,500 that you're working with. That's what I'll leave you with. I wish everybody knew. And what your student is working with. And there's one other thing. If you apply for a student loan, a parent loan, and your credit, it's rejected, your student is then automatically availed of an additional $4,000 in institutional aid because you could not get the parent loan. So know that. So even if you know you can't get it, if you apply for it and you're rejected, your student automatically gets access to an additional $4,000, and that's any HBCU. So again, where you're already working with $5,500, your student is working with $5,500. Work from there. And again, I'm available to anybody who has any questions, who needs any help. Again, like I said, I'm undefeated.
Thanks, Casey. And last but not least, Vanessa.
Okay, so I'm going to go back, because I told you my daughter's old. Don't tell her I told you that. The 529 the New York State 529 program had just started, I think the year before she graduated. And I had toyed with the idea of it. I wish I had dived in at that time, because the 529 could be used not just for undergraduate school, but also for grad school. And that would have, although it was new, if I would have utilized it, she would have had a pot of money to assist her once she went to graduate school, because she went to graduate school almost immediately coming out of undergrad. So a couple of things. I saw someone ask, what is a 529? 529 is a college savings program. And just think of it like this. It's like an IRA for college. Just think of it like that. It's like an IRA for college. The earlier you do it, it's better. I have 529s for both my grandchildren. I started it the moment my daughter said she was expecting. So one is now almost 11, the other one is 6. And I make monthly contributions to that 529 program. A couple of other things, as Ms. Lowe said, and I'm glad she said it, if the parent is rejected for a Parent Plus loan, because the direct loan is the student's loan, is not based on any credit worthiness of the student, but the Parent Plus loan is based upon credit worthiness of the parent. That student would then be eligible for additional money based upon the fact that their parent was rejected for a Parent Plus loan. So that she's absolutely right. A couple of the gems I want to drop. The federal government that administers the federal student aid program, under the 2020 FAFSA Reconciliation Act. Beginning 2023, the FAFSA is going to go down to 35 questions, which I know is a big deal because it's all of those questions. It's going to go to 35 questions. Also, beginning next year, there will be a $400 increase to the Pell Grant. So I believe it would bring it up to almost $7,000 a year with that $400 increase. And that's going to begin in 2023. That was just approved by the federal government. Start early, start early, start early. Please start early. If your child is a freshman, begin to just look at scholarships, identify scholarships. There's some, particularly the big scholarships. If you are a junior, if you are currently now in 11th grade, I want you to identify 20 national scholarships. So just off the top of my head, if you're an African-American student, I always say apply for the Ron Brown Scholarship. If I say to students, if eligible, apply for the Gates scholarships, but be mindful, in order to participate with the Gates Scholarship, you have to be Pell eligible. Because this is in New York, and so I'm gonna make an assumption that most of the people here are from New York. If you attend a New York City public school, if you are a New York City public school student, there is the Albert Shanker Scholarship that every one of your guidance counselors should be telling you about. And if they don't, shame on them. It's $5,000. Look for local scholarships. Many students overlook local scholarships. Please. And also, since we're talking about HBCUs, please create profiles with UNCF and the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. Set up those profiles now and begin to peruse what scholarships. I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna go. When you don't know, you don't know. In the year 2020, December, there was a scholarship created. It was administered by UNCF. It was for New York City graduating high school students. $10,000 if you identified as African-American, Latino, or Latinx, or an Indigenous American. Most students, because this was at the height of the pandemic, didn't even know that scholarship existed. So begin to start early. It'll take the stress off you. It'll take the stress off your family. Go HBCUs, all HBCU love, all 107 of them.
Thank you all so very much. I can't thank you enough for all of this information that you have given us. At this time, I would now like to open it up to Q&A. I do see in the chat there have been some links placed there for some 529 plans, so you guys might want to take advantage of that. Also, Ms. Lowe, your contact information has been requested, so if you can drop that in the chat, that would be awesome, and any other panelists as well, if you're comfortable in doing so. So I'll start off with our first question from the audience, and that question is, how would you recommend navigating scholarships and grants in HBCU graduate schools, particularly law school? So I guess that would be more for either Ms. Sparks or Ms. Lowe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, grad school money is a lot more challenging because it also depends on what you're going to major in. It's not impossible, but just like with undergraduate school money, you have to look for it. Now, I'm going to attempt to drop something in the link, in the chat. Back in like 2005, 2006, there used to be this book put out called Black Scholars, Black Dollars. And it was like 200 and some odd pages. And I found it to be one of the best scholarship resources for scholarships going all the way up to the doctoral level. I still have an electronic copy version of it. So I am going to attempt to drop it in the chat because many of those scholarships still exist. Don't be put off by the 2006, 2007. I'm going to attempt to find it and drop it in the chat.
Thank you.
But I do know if you are going to major, particularly like in a STEM, there's a lot more money at the graduate level for a STEM major than, let's say, if you're going for, you know, even law or something else. So with grad money, and I think Ms. Thompson can speak to this, and even Ms. Lowe. If you're looking for grad school money, it's going to be really important to make your net worth is your net worth while you're in undergrad school, because oftentimes it is the faculty that will know where money for grad school is at that is just not generally published. So while you're in undergraduate school, you also are going to be working and networking with individuals that will be able to assist you as you go on to graduate school. So I'm gonna look for this and drop it in the chat.
Thank you. And Ms. Parks, as you're putting that in the chat, your contact information was also requested. So both you, Ms. Lowe, can you please put your contact information? Thank you.
What I would say about support for graduate school, what you're majoring in is very important, but anything in the STEM, especially as a Black woman, can be paid for. And I mean, know the word fellowship, because that is, they pay for school and they give you a stipend, and it's livable when you're talking about either getting a master's or a PhD. When we talk about law school, like I am the person, I'm solution oriented, right? It's not really a can't when it comes to education. So depending on how open you are to figuring out how to fund law school, what I would suggest, and it depends on what state you are, it depends on your personality, get a job at the school or go to work for a legislator. There are so many different ways to fund. And when we talk about state legislators, that there's funding, there's some amazing perks to working in politics. I'm talking about for Florida. And also there are scholarships that can be used that are general scholarships that can be used at a grad level. So that too goes into searching for the scholarships that are out there, because there are scholarships, especially for women, that I've seen for higher ed that are generalized, that you can use it towards a degree of some sort. It usually doesn't even pigeonhole you. So, you know, you have that, but I think fellowship, teacher's aid, just working at the university or the school. Typically, sometimes you can, well, I know for state schools, you get, if you work in a state school, they will pay for so many classes for you. And I haven't checked out law for sure. I don't know, but they will pay for so many up to PhD. So I know in Florida, they'll pay for 2 classes per semester. The state will pay if you are a state employee in any agency, not just the university. So there are some creative ways to get graduate school paid for. And another thing, there are companies that hire engineers, especially at the FSU College of Engineering. I have friends that are now master engineers that work for Ford, GM, and Chrysler. When they were recruited, they went to work for a year and the company paid for them to go to school, and they came back and finished their master's degree and still got their salary. So those options are there. You just kind of, again, like Erin said, you have to talk to people, the professors, and find the people who are go to where you want to go to school, or connect with the people who go to your school and find out who the gatekeepers are. And that's for anything, I would tell you. So that's all I got.
No, that's awesome. That's perfect.
Actually, I couldn't detach it. So if people email me, I will email it to them. I was attempting to detach that book, that scholarship book. So, but I will, if they just email me, I'll forward it to them.
So I wanted to add to what Ms. Sparks said about networking, especially for law school. It is very important. And if you are certain that that's the path that you want to take in undergrad, there are a lot of associations that you can join. If you are a Black student, National Black Law Student Association is full of scholarships and opportunities to fund your law school education. I know Phi Alpha Delta. If your school has a chapter of Phi Alpha Delta, that is the largest law fraternity in the United States. And that is a great resource as well as to getting funding for law school. So networking, putting yourself in those groups, putting yourself out there and asking the questions that you need to ask are very important. But I will strongly suggest getting into those groups, because not only are those groups helpful, but the sponsors for those groups as well will have connections that can lead to you funding your graduate education.
Thank you so much, guys. Awesome. And yes, Sister Kelly said in law school, she worked in the admissions office. So it does work and you can still get creative, like Ms. Lowe said. Our next question from the audience is, let's just say if your GPA was not high enough while you was in high school, right? Is it possible to then get a scholarship maybe after your first semester in college? And anybody can answer.
Most definitely, yes.
Yes.
Your undergrad GPA or even your tests on the ACT and SAT are not strictly determining factors on whether you can still get academic scholarships while you're matriculating through school. You can definitely apply to scholarships if you find that your college GPA has risen or you're doing better academically in college, you still most definitely can be eligible for academic scholarships while you're matriculating.
And that ties into the scholarship portal. Every school has one. So that when that portal opens up, you go in there and you apply. And though they're institutional awards, they are awards that have been set up by people who wanted to award students specifically at that school. So yes, another thing that we have not talked about, which is kind of, everybody wants a college experience, but the community college to university or college campus, that pipeline, that's real. And I know there are some high schools that have students also taking college courses, community college courses. So if there are specific transfer scholarships that people can get. There's a student that I'm working with now that is out of the Chicago area who wants to come to FAMU. He does not have the GPA, but he does have some of the community college credits. So he can actually come in as a transfer student with 12 community college credits at that GPA because he would be a community college transfer. And there are also dollars that are attached to that. So there are some different ways to attack going to school. Community college is oftentimes cheaper, and the universities want that pipeline because you've gotten all your general education courses out of the way, and you go in, you think about it, you've lower cost in those first 2 years or however long it takes you. And then only 2 years at the larger institution. So those two are options.
I'm so glad you said that, Ms. Lowe. I am so glad because we often overlook that community college experience, not just financially. Some students, quite honestly, are not ready to hit the ground running at a 4-year school. They have to mature a little bit. And I'm taking finance out of it at the moment. They may not have had the most positive high school experience for whatever reason. And what going to a community college does is, one, as you said, the tuition is much lower. It also allows the student to strengthen their academic chops and mature, and actually mature because so when they get to a 4-year school, their chances of being successful are far greater. There, as you said, there's a lot of money, and then if you do 2 years, the college you're looking to transfer into is going to look at your college academic record and not look at that high school record. Mm-hmm. Here in New York, and I'm sure around the country, there are many students that are graduating with the high school diploma and an associate's degree from certain high schools here. I do want to say this, and I hope students are doing that. You want to make sure that whatever college you're going to or plan to go to, they accept all or most of your credits. You want to do that before. I'll just tell you a real quick transfer scholarship I know about. It's called the Jack Kent Cook Scholarship. They have one for 8th grade students. They have one for students graduating high school. And then they have one for transfer students. Jack Kent Cook Scholarship. But the community college is an awesome, awesome way for students to make that transfer, to go from high school community college into a 4-year school. In the state of California, they actually have, their community college system actually has an articulation agreement with a number of Hbcus out of the state of California. I wish we had something like that here in New York, but the state of California actually has an official MOU with a number of the Hbcus. So,
full transparency, I'm that parent who wants all the kids to have a college experience. But I have to say that because that is what, that is the sensible, rational thing to say. So I will say for students who do not have the GPA, there are opportunities at Hbcus where they will take you on a provisional basis. You can come in for the summer and take a couple classes. And if you pass those classes, you will then matriculate into your freshman year in the fall. So, delayed is not denied. There are ways. So again, that is looking at the institution and asking the questions, but there are provisional acceptances. And when we talk about Hbcus, and I have to say this, I know we only have a few minutes, there are things you get there that you will get nowhere else. And graduation rates may be challenged in the majority. But what we're dealing with is students that are coming from different educational systems, students that are coming with different backgrounds, students that are coming with different situations. Hbcus deal with the total student. And I think that is something that everybody needs to understand. So there will be some difficulties, and that's anywhere that you go, but delayed is not denied. And if you really want it, you can have it, but you're gonna have to work for it. Hbcus accept iron sharpens iron. Iron sharpens iron. My freshman roommate got into all the Ivies. She went to Wharton for graduate school. We are still friends to this day. So but of course that made sense to me when I was an adult. But again, so you get in this environment where you see yourself reflected, it makes you better. And it may take this student a little bit longer. That could happen. But that's why the community college pipeline is important. The provisional pipeline is important because if, take a couple classes, if you get through, that'll tell you your student's ready. But those are conversations that we really need to have.
Definitely. Thank you, Ms. Lowe. All of that is very helpful, especially the provisional, because I don't think a lot of people are aware that you can just come in over the summer, take those classes, and it, gets you where you need to be. So thanks. Ms. Sparks, can you talk about the financial aid appeal process?
Oh, yes. So every school, every college, there is a financial aid appeal process. So let me preface this by saying, and I'm going to start just in the past 2 years because the pandemic really has, I don't want to say changed the trajectory, but you have to really have your ducks in a row. Is it possible? Absolutely. One of the things that families, and I'm going to speak as the collective, we don't communicate with the schools when we have challenges. So I'll give you an example. You complete a FAFSA and it says one thing based upon the information from that tax year. Parents may have lost a job, lost income. Parents may have divorced, all kinds of different factors. And we never convey that information to the school. So one of the things you always want to do is keep a constant and present communication with the, now, part of this I'm unorthodox because there are many people here that know me know I am for real transparent, okay? Financial aid office, provost office, you can get an email now. So but there is an official process. So for example, I like to use anecdotal stories. So work with a family. Remember I said the earlier you do this, the better your chances are. Son goes to an HBCU. She got her award. FSEOG wasn't on there. She called, she said, well, they didn't give me this money. I said, this is what you do. I said, when did you file your FAFSA? Look at the date that you filed that your FAFSA was submitted. And in her case, she submitted it November 2nd. I said, now you're going to call the financial aid office and you're going to put them on the defense. You're going to say, what percentage of incoming families had a completed FAFSA on file by November 2nd? Guess what? It was very little. So then that's what she did. She said to them, there's no way in the world you have used up this money. Now when she had this conversation with them, it was May, because that's when her award came in. And based upon her completing her FAFSA early, and also she actually got called for verification, and she did that very early. Not only because they told her there was no more FSEOG money, but when she presented her case, they were able to say, you know what? She's been able to prove it. And they went back and gave her the whole $4,000. So part of an appeal, you have to have something to stand on. You can't just say, I want you to give me more money for the sake of it, because there are thousands of other students that can make that same claim. You have to put yourself in the best position for an appeal. If there's some extenuating circumstances, like I said, let's say parents lost income, parents separation or divorce, or a death. If you were able to show that there's been a substantial change in the family dynamics, maybe someone had a baby, maybe the parent is also caring for extended family members. But whenever you're going to request an appeal, and I don't care if this is a PWI or an HBCU, you have to have something to stand on other than, I think I should have more money. It cannot just be, I think I should have more money. And that's real talk. That's realistic. And a lot of the frustration from parents is when they go for appeals, but they have nothing to stand on. You may have filed your FAFSA February 15th, but the opening date was October 1st, but you want to now appeal it. That doesn't say to a financial aid administrator that just because you come and ask for it, but you've done, as I think Ms. Lowe said, you put no skin in the game, that I am going to just award you this money. So this is why I'm gonna go back to it again. Timeliness is so very important. Maintaining your documentation is so very important. Communication is so very, very, very important. Here's another one. I had to do an appeal, and I'm gonna tell you something. My appeal was so good that they found my daughter $10,000 additional dollars, because I was able to write a letter, because I did my stuff very, very early. Not only that, I actually, because I'm extra, I'm just gonna tell you, I could be extra. I went and got data that showed the cost of living in New York in New York City 2000 versus the cost of living in Atlanta at that time. And I was able to show them through data that what I earned what someone earned, because what they were telling me was based upon my EFC, based upon my income. But I was able to show them with data that what I earned did not go as far in New York City as it did in Atlanta. And I did everything I needed to do in a timely fashion. And they came back, and I kid you not, the night before my daughter's senior prom, I got a call at 9 o'clock at night that told me, Ms. Sparks, we changed the numbers, and they found 10,000 additional institutional money. And I did not have to take any parent loan out that year. So it's about, you have to do things, and I want parents, please hear this, students, please hear this. This is not a process. Remember, you are one of thousands of students. And these financial aid administrators have heard all of these stories 15 times over. So you have to put yourself in the most strategic position as you can if you want to appeal a financial aid award. Usually an appeal is done based on those things. And it cannot just be, I need more money.
Thank you. So we do have a few more questions. I'm going to try to actually combine two that were kind of connected. One of them was, what tools can be used for finding scholarships? And another was, what keywords can be typed in when looking for scholarships?
HBCU scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
scholarships.
You're looking at the NAACP, but go ahead, Ms. Sparks.
You could, this sounds crazy. This sounds crazy. I am a New York City student or whatever state you're looking for scholarships for blank college, and see what pops up. Here's something else, and I'm going to say this to people that are organizations that are here. I don't know if, how many of you know about the Foundation Center. The Foundation Center, which is located in Lower Manhattan, but they have 3 locations around the country. They are the premier place in the United States for finding money for anything. Undergrad, grad, if you have an organization. It is now called Candid, C-A-N-D-I-D. You purchase a subscription and it gives you access to the database for millions, and I don't say thousands, millions of scholarships. Scholarship at the grad and undergrad level. And so this is what a lot of families, at least that I've worked with here in New York, of means do. They actually purchase a scholarship for Candid, and they begin to do the research as early as 9th grade. And there are millions of scholarships that pop up. Ones that, I kid you not, it could be someone in Dubai that will have a scholarship for someone in the United States going into a particular field. They have access to it. So it is called Candid. I'll put it the website in. They even have classes that you could do, they'll do online now, that will show you how to utilize their database. I do know during the pandemic in New York City, they were, certainly before the pandemic, they were allowing, in every borough in the city, they had a dedicated librarian in every one of the and all of the major libraries in each borough. So in the borough of Queens, it was the main branch on Merrick Boulevard, where people could go in and access the database for free. I don't know if they're still doing that, but they did do that at one time. Okay, I'm going to put it in, and it doesn't matter if you're in this state, out of this state, it doesn't even matter now, because so much, almost everything is being done virtually. But I'm going to put their website. So, you know, someone asked about graduate money. You actually can find a lot of graduate money utilizing their database.
I will say about the keywords, a lot of scholarships are state specific. So put in your state. A lot of them are even put in your city, put in your county, even like go so far as to put those specific keywords, because you will find a lot of associations, even neighborhood associations that like to do garner funds for certain scholarships and stuff like that. So put your geographical information down to your city and your county. You can search keywords, your high school name. There will be a lot of private associations that have scholarships for the alumna of that high school. So yeah, those are good keywords to use.
You can also type in majors, depending on what you want to major in, and scholarships will come up for those things. If you have an IEP, if you have a disability, if you write left-handed, you know, it's all sorts of keywords that you can type in.
Like it was said in the chat, some gems are being dropped. Absolutely, all of those are helpful. We have 2 more questions, guys. Thanks for sticking with us. One of those questions is, let's say if you get a private scholarship, will that negatively impact your overall financial aid package? Ms. Lowe is saying yes, it will. Okay, Ms. Sparks, I see you.
It depends. It's not. It depends. So a private scholarship on an external scholarship, what a financial aid administrator is supposed to do is apply that money where, if, let's say, for example, you had to take a loan, it would take the place of that loan. What an external scholarship will not do is replace the EFC. So if a family has an EFC, let's say of $2,000, which means the college expects the family to contribute $2,000 to their child's education. An external scholarship will not replace the EFC, but what it will replace is any loans or employment. So if someone gets work study, right? Let's say they get $3,000 in work study and they have a $5,500 loan, that's $8,500. And they get a $10,000 scholarship. It will wipe out that loan and it will replace that federal work study. That's what it's supposed to do. But you always want to ask. You want to ask if an external scholarship will affect your need-based aid if you receive any, because usually scholarships like that, many of them are just for that freshman year, many times. So what you want to know, how will that affect next year and the following year? So again, this goes back to communication. And as Ms. Thompson said, you have to ask questions. There's not necessarily a one size fits all or cookie cutter approach, because my situation will be different than yours. We could go to the same school, we could come from the same high school, but my dynamics will be different than yours. But you have to communicate with the school about that. So the answer to this is an external scholarship, but let me just rephrase that a little bit. If the external scholarship is going to go directly to the school, that's what the school will do. Now, if the external scholarship comes to you, because we have a lot of scholarships that they don't send it to the school, they're awarded to the awardee. Now, what you students should do, let's say you get 4 $1,000 scholarships from local organizations and they hand you the check. What you should do is that if you have a loan that you have to take out, apply that money so it will reduce the loan. Now, I'm gonna keep it honest and real. Remember, I'm transparent. A lot of students get that $4,000 and they say, okay, I'm gonna buy a computer, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and that's all well and good. Understand this, one of my philosophies on life. Don't let anybody tell you any different. We all pay. We're gonna pay on the front end or we're gonna pay on the back end for something. You just have to decide, when do you want to pay? Do you want to pay up front now or do you want to pay on the end? And it will be a different answer for each individual. So if it's an external scholarship where the scholarship is going to send the money directly to the college, then what the college will do is they will use it to eliminate any loans that you may have or any employment commitment, i.e. a work study program. If they send it to you, you have to make the decision. And this is where, family involvement and all of that good stuff comes in. If you get 4 or 5 $1,000 scholarships and the money is awarded directly to you, then what you should do is look at your financial aid award. And let's say if you're a freshman and you got a $5,500 federal loan, you should take that money and just send it to the school to wipe out that loan. So instead of having a $5,500 loan, you would only have a $500 loan.
So mom, student, worker, and a person who sees a struggle right now, if you get $10,000 in a scholarship and they send it to you, keep that $10,000. You can take it and you apply it. Say you go to school and your cost of attendance is going to be $25,000 for fall 22 and 23. You take that $10,000 and after all of your awards are applied, you apply it and your tuition is paid. Because what happens if you give them that money as a scholarship is that you've now eliminated $5,500 in funds that you had. So you have to replace that somehow. I thought this was about getting through. We gonna pay, period.
Okay,
right?
I do want to say this. Generally, they will never mail you a $10,000 check.
No, collectively,
Wait, but let me finish.
It might add up to 10,000.
There's no absolutes. Generally, they won't. Generally, if you're getting an award of $5,000 or more, generally, whoever the awardee is, they're going to ask you what, you have to show what school you're going to, and they send it to that school, generally. So let me just take what Ms. Lowe said, because as I said, there always are outliers, okay? So remember I said, you always want to ask, how will any scholarship, whether it's institutional money or external money, how will that affect your need-based award? Because what you never want them to do is take away your need-based money. Okay, you don't ever, if you get Pell, you don't want them to take away Pell. If you get FSEOD, you don't want them to take that away. So the first question is, how will this affect my award? If they send a $10,000 check to you, and let's say that $5,500 is that of a loan, you could decide, well, I'll just pay this loan, or I'll pay that, so I won't have the loan, and I'll hold the rest for next year, because as a second year student, you could take $6,500. Because remember, I said everything is different for everybody. I'm always of the belief that we don't know what may happen. We know where we're at right now, right in the moment. So if I get a financial aid award and I have $5,500 federal loan. Now, I'm not even talking about a parent loan, just a $5,500 federal loan. And I receive a scholarship. One of the things I want to do, because see, for some of this money, for some of these scholarships, particularly external scholarships, you don't know if you'll get that money the following year. Because oftentimes when they award external scholarships, unless they're the real big ones, that are multi-year. But for the most part, some of them are just awarded for your freshman year. You're not going to get that money, or you may not get that money second year. So you don't want to jam yourself up with any need-based federal money that you can count on for the following year. So again, this is about communication. Understand that for you, it's different than for somebody else. I know what's going on this year, right now. I don't know in terms of if I have this scholarship. I may not get the scholarship next year. So I want to at least try to not pay anything for this year, because I don't know what's going to happen next year. So that's all I want to say. So not to say that what Ms. Lowe said is incorrect, because that's not the case. It's contingent upon who the award comes from, who they send it to, what your current situation is, and to find out whether that will affect any need-based money you will get.
I graduate students, call me.
Thanks, Ms. Lowe. So guys,
I have too.
No, I graduate, it's current. And again, that's fine. But again, it's 10,000 of them. And the bill remains the same for every one of them. So situations may be different, but their accounts, the totals are the same.
Right. Thank you both so much for your experience and your input. I appreciate it. And I'm pretty sure everybody on the call appreciates it as well. I'm going to ask for you guys to please try to answer this question for me very briefly. The first one is, someone did say, can we just elaborate on what exactly a 529 plan is? And I apologize because we just kind of told you guys to have one and get it. But Santasha, can you just tell them, what is it in the first place?
So it's like Ms. Sparks had shared before, It's a savings plan that can be used for, you know, college, for books and everything. And it is transferable between, you know, your children, but it's strictly definitely for school. It can't be used for anything else. And you could put as little as $100 in it, $50. Right, 25. And anyone can contribute to it. So like, you know, Ms. Sparks is saying for her grandchildren, she contributes to it. So family members can contribute to it. You could send them an invite with the account information and say, hey, you know, if you're giving a child a gift or something, birthday, Christmas, hey, here's the account number, you can put the money in there. And the money just accumulates. You can have them, you know, automatic transfer, come out your check every month, you know, out of your bank account, and it's up to you how much you want to put in at a time every month. You can always up it, reduce it. It's totally up to you.
Now, I will say this. The implications in terms of the tax liability depends on who the account holder is. So remember I said, I have for my grandchildren, I am not financially responsible for my grandchildren's college education. So, and this is, and let me just say this is also fluid. Like I said, I have a 5-year-old granddaughter. Who knows what the financial aid scene will be by the time she gets to college, right? But for right now, there is no implication on the FAFSA for me having that 529 because I am the account holder. Now, if her mother or father were the account holders, it would be a little bit different. So on the FAFSA, when it asks you to list assets, that 529 is counted in the assets if the parent is the account holder. But if it's grandma, cousin, uncle, there's no tax, there's no tax implications in you having it. So that's what's great about that.
Perfect. Thanks. I hope that answered that question. This is our final question from the audience. Let's say if you have poor credit, can you still receive a loan?
A parent loan or a private loan?
So the person did not specify.
Okay, for a parent loan, you have to be credit worthy, and you can't be in default. I have to say this: you can't be in default with the IRS. You cannot be in student loan default, nor can you owe child support. Can't not. Put it out there. Remember, I'm transparent. However, the metrics that the federal government uses to determine credit worthiness is different than if you're going to buy a car, or if you're going to buy a house, or if you're going to get a credit card. You know, the metrics are slightly different, meaning, you know, what a bank would look at if you're getting a mortgage for credit worthiness is different than what the federal government looks at for a parent loan. But yes, it is based on credit worthiness of the parent. And something we didn't talk about, and I have to say that I want to define parent as it relates to financial aid. A parent is defined as the biological, adoptive, or step parent. We have families where students have lived and have been raised by other family members, grandparents, aunts, uncles. They are not responsible for a student's college education as per the federal government, as per the colleges. That student will automatically be an independent student. A dependent student is anyone under the age of 24 who is not married, who have no dependents of their own, and they're financially supported by their biological, adoptive, and or step parent. And I always like to really emphasize when I talk about step parents, because sometimes step parents don't feel that they factor into the equation, but they do. If that step parent is married to the student's biological parent and they all reside in one household, that step parent's financial information must be provided.
Perfect. I pray that I got to everybody's question. Ladies, I want to thank you for spending these hours with us, dropping all these gems. I'm so grateful, and I'm pretty sure everyone else on the call is as well. I'm going to close out by ending with what my sister started with, that going to college is not a luck for a lucky few, right? But it should be a right. And so I hope that you guys take heed to all the information that was shared so that you can start on your journey to being able to fund an HBCU education. Ask questions and start early. Thank you so much. I'm now turning it back over to our co-chairs, Sister Kelly and Sister Carlene. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Walker. That was amazing. You are amazing, amazing moderator. And thank you to our panelists for your priceless information. I mean, we're talking about money, but this information was absolutely priceless. Hopefully everyone learned some things and can use it in the years to come in sending your children to HBCUs, or for those of you who are thinking of going to HBCUs. So thank you so very much. I hope that you can take something away from this. And as you saw in the chat, this link will be sent to everyone who registered for the event. So in case you didn't get everything or you have some questions about what was said, you'll have an opportunity to go back and look at it again. So thank you so very much. And I'm now going to turn it over to Ms. Carlene Taylor.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. And thank you all again for spending this afternoon or late morning afternoon with us. We hope that this forum was very informative. I would like to personally thank our moderator, Sister Tatiana Walker. Thank you for an excellent job with moderating this excellent panel. Thank you to Erin. Continue to do amazing things, as you have shown that you definitely have a great future ahead of you. Thank you to Sister Santasha for advocating or for speaking on behalf of our parents. Thank you to Casey Lowe for speaking and bringing your expertise on behalf of higher educational professionals, especially from an HBCU perspective. And thank you, Ms. Vanessa Sparks, for all of your information regarding financial aid and scholarship. And thank you for all of those gems that you've dropped. And thank you to everyone. This was, I hope that you got a lot of information out of it. To our students, we hope that this helps you as you embark on your journey to enroll into college. And we hope that it will be an HBCU for whatever you choose or wherever you choose to go. We wish you all the best. We do have a poll that we would like to launch now. We would like to continue to bring forums like this, and we want to know how we're doing, and we want to know what you need. So please take this poll so we can see if we're bringing you the information that you need. I see it on the screen now. You can please join. We'll give you a few minutes to take the poll. Are we able to see what percentage we're at?
We are at 78, no, 80%.
Okay, I'll give it just another minute or so. I hope everyone takes the poll. And I would also like to acknowledge that we had Senator Leroy Comrie on with us earlier. You might have saw what he wrote in the chat, but I would like to acknowledge that he was with us this morning. I would like to also acknowledge our technology team, Sister Kim Adams, and Sister Christella Leandre, behind the scenes working our technology. So thank you to them. for that. Mhm.
Madam Chair, we are at 85%.
Okay, so give it 30 more seconds and hopefully we can get as close to 100 as possible.
Okay, I think we are done.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for coming. We hope that you enjoyed the program. We hope that we gave you some valuable information. And please watch out for our websites and our social media pages for additional events that we'll be having surrounding HBCUs. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your weekend.